again, using Slido and using this QR code or this website, we'd like to ask the scribe for your particular group to enter into the word cloud representation. Maybe, do you need to open it up?
I think we said in as few words as possible.
Yeah, in as few words as possible, enter the 3 top, and we'll start with the challenges that you pulled from that surfaced within your group discussion. At this moment, yes. And that's okay. As people come back, we'll still have, I just sort of to get us started. We can make it live.
Yeah. Challenges. Oops. Okay, wait. We can only show one thing at a time. So let's start with challenges. Okay.
So as folks are coming in, given the time, what we'll do here is we'll represent the top 3 that each of the breakout groups surfaced in a word cloud, and then what we'd like to do is we'll give you a chance of having everybody contribute to that. So at the moment, just the scribes coming into this word cloud tool, and in as few words as possible, enter the top 3 that surfaced, top 3 challenges or issues that surfaced in your group discussion.
Okay, I know it says you can enter multiple things, but it doesn't appear to be letting us do that. So I'm going to add more. I'm going to add 3 word clouds. Does that make sense?
No. Maybe we just have everyone do it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to have
So
3
rather
scribes.
than just the scribes, just go ahead and have folks, everyone in the room, just enter sort of the top 3 challenges or issues that came up in the discussions you had in your breakout group. See, there's a solution right there.
There we go.
So I think we're bringing up a lot of the things that were mentioned in the earlier part of our workshop today as well, as to whether or not the right questions are being asked with different algorithms. And clearly somebody understands the impact of writing something multiple times. So the lack of transparency, lack of accountability, this is coming up. And I'm assuming that by saying who is the decision maker, there are issues with the decision maker not including the full spectrum of people who have a stake or an interest in what's being decided. Oversight, another question about the use of algorithms for healthcare goals. So determining, defining fairness and what goes into that, and is it contextual depending upon the use case? And certainly who's involved in making that. So we'll keep going. So we're asking folks to go ahead and put what the top 3 challenges that came up in their group discussion. And so while that's going on, I would like to kind of just reach out to the group so that we're not here in sort of this dead weird silence staring at this. And just kind of seek input. Maybe if someone could offer up, you know, what was something that came up that was surprising to you about a problem that one of these case studies brought up. Does anybody want to offer such a comment? Thanks. Since you have the mic.
Yeah, since I have the mic. We had an interesting conversation towards the end about, we had the case study that was focused on health disparities in who receives organ transplants and exclusion specifically of individuals with intellectual or neurodevelopmental disabilities. And some really stark percentages of people with those disabilities who are not eligible for transplants. And one of the things that we talked about towards the end was actually when to throw out the algorithmic output or AI output, and when to rely actually on human intuition instead, like what the protocol for that is, and then what the alternative will be.
Thank you. I think related to that too is perhaps some of this. We have algorithm, AI in particular, already influencing decisions that have been made for some number of years. And if you go back and now base data upon decision making that was based upon those erroneous algorithms, you're just perpetuating a problem into the future. So it gets back to this, like, when do we stop and say, okay, we can't keep, you know, making bad against bad. We have to say, okay, the foundation of this isn't good, therefore we start again. And so I think that's also something that came up in one of these. Okay, so again, given the time, let's move to solutions, because yeah, we have a comment in the back. Roberto, thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen. You know, I think I came to a conclusion today. Maybe it's not new at all, but it just sat with me in the discussion we were having, that any algorithm is just going to be reflective of us, right? Like there may be the notion of objectivity and fairness, just the same way we say we provide healthcare and good health for the world, right, as an institution, and yet, you know, any number of data will show that we have racial discrimination and you know, homophobia, sexism, and all those things are reflected in whether it's tenure or healthcare decisions, calling of CPS on particular families in the children's hospital. I mean, just in so many ways, we know that we have discriminatory outcomes, right? And so what that made me think is, you know, perhaps we need to just be much more explicit about trying to offset those historical harms by saying we want to give benefit to groups that have been structurally disadvantaged, right, historically. And I think that's challenging for folks, right? And we want to embrace a notion of objectivity, a notion of fairness, an idea of perhaps even meritocracy, but either way, I think that's a challenging notion for folks, and we want to think that an algorithm is going to spit something out that's going to be free of the biases of all the people that are inputting the data into the algorithm, right? And so I think that's something I'm sitting with right now really strongly.
Thank you. So I might just extend onto that myself and just say, you know, this concept of human-centered algorithms, of sort of just like we need to have humans be part of this as well, because algorithms are imperfect and so there does need to be sort of judgment and valuation in all steps of that utilizes people. Yeah, Keith.
And I think just to add on to that, very important point, humans that build the algorithm, humans are carrying biases, some of which they're aware of, some of which they're not aware of, some of which they're aware of but won't acknowledge. And so, you know, really means that having a diversity of voices involved in the conception and design of the algorithm is central. But that diversity is our best chance of being able to call these things out and bring them to the surface.
Thank you. We have one in the back comment.
Yeah, so our group, we spoke a lot about, I think, like incentive structures, and that there's a lot of incentives at play that aren't necessarily trying to optimize like the clinical outcome that we may want. And so understanding that from the get-go, and like we've been, like everyone's echoing that, just at every step, you're making sure that you're considering the actual outcome you want, despite all of these possible conflicting incentive structures.
Thank you. So as we start to see some of the solutions, I think we've got words disaggregated here that make it hard to, but I think as Keith was just saying, keeping diverse voices at the table, which includes patients and includes just that diversity and breadth of experience and background. Getting at sort of how do we define what's real transparency? Whoever was putting that up, do you want to comment a little further on how we might address that? Anybody want to take ownership as a solution?
I don't want to take ownership of that, but I just want to add one more comment. The point is that I think we need diversity, not just in the design of the algorithms, but we need it in the accountability for how they're used. Because I think it's easy for us to think as, you know, developers and data scientists, how, you know, how we build a model to be the most fair as it can be. But as it came up in our group, you know, who's actually making the decisions with the algorithm is equally, if not more important. And having, you know, diverse voices in that room, I think is also critically important.
Thank you. So across the lifespan of algorithm, you know, sort of the problem to be addressed, the way it gets addressed and developed, and execution and impact. Thank you. So I want to open it up to any other comments about things that that maybe didn't directly come from the case studies, but things that were maybe prompted, you know, by some of the earlier conversations from our panelists or Q&As, and so an opportunity to bring up, you know, so other sorts of things related to barriers and or solutions to the problem of algorithmic injustice. Yeah.
One of the things that bubbled up for us, for our group, and ended up being our sort of top solution was an FDA-like regulation for AI, much like for devices. So, you know, that could it could help with comparative effectiveness, what's better, the AI or the standard of care, and equity review. all of that could be helped by robust regulation rather than allowing developers, implementers to make all of these decisions separately.
Thank you. And in thinking about that solution, who's at the table in such a regulatory, in defining those regulations? Right? Again, that diverse set of people, so that different voices are part of that.
Our group talked a lot about putting an expert or community leader as a human in the loop of the feedback on the data. So that way you're actually getting some feedback from a population health expert or your social work team to really see if what you're doing is actually driving the right type of change that they need to their hospital or health system.
Thank you. We have one right up here.
I have a couple questions. One, a really practical question. Can all the case studies be shared with everyone? I'm now even more interested to know what the other groups were talking about from all these great ideas. That's the easy one. The second one I'm curious about, I wonder, and I don't know if anyone in the room can reflect on this, what are the power structures? Like what comes out of this meeting? What are the possibilities and what are the power structures? I think we talked a lot in our group about how do we make sure decisions about creation and deployment of algorithms and use of the HR are sort of driven by these values of equity and equality and fairness. And, you know, who is that a thing that we can do? Can we make a decision saying we will not implement an algorithm if X, Y, Z, and who assesses it? How, I guess, Keith, who can we make those kind of recommendations, or what can be the next steps to implement some of the ideas that we've seen here? What comes out of this?
You said at the beginning that
It's on. It's not. Yeah. Okay.
You said at the beginning that not just deliberation. The people who were involved in planning this are all kind of overjoyed with the amount of participation and feedback and what gotten. There's a lot of it, and it's complicated. And so aggregating it is going to be an interesting challenge, but one that we'll take on. And from that will come recommendations that will be explicit. We'll certainly get all of that back to you as well. So it just won't just go up to the big guys at the top, but also filter back to you. So it would be great to get your comments on what we eventually send back to you. But we definitely want to be able to make recommendations based on what we've heard and discussed today. So, you know, if those get adopted, that's great. If they don't and they just become fodder for further discussion and deliberation, okay, it's better than nothing. So we definitely will be following up. You know, the campus leadership. So Sam, people at UC Health, people at the top of UC Health, people at the top of the research enterprise.
Then I lead on the health system side our AI governance for evaluating AI for trustworthiness before we implement in the health system. And we have tried to create for that evaluative process a very diverse group of folks, like from the health system, from campus. We have the leader of our Health Equity Council as part of that group. But it is still in its infancy. And so maybe toddlerhood, actually. We've been around for a little bit, but you know, we are very eager to hear recommendations that come out of this group and try to incorporate it as best we can.
Thank you. Irene.
I'll just, can I just insert something, Gretchen?
What came to mind to me too is that we talked about standard practice, standard of care, and even looking at the different UCs and let's say what the UCLA doctor might do differently and maybe better than a UCSF doctor. That culture of let's learn from each other and grow in what we do, I think is still in its toddlerhood. And so maybe some of the things that are happening without AI are, imposing on AI too.
Thank you.
The thing I just wanted to add, I think was partly answered. My question was, what is UCSF's governance structure and principles for making decisions about what algorithms we are going to deploy, which ones that we're going to test, which ones we're going to use, when are we going to say no? And I think you helped to answer some of that, but I'm also find it striking that not a lot of us who work in this institution for a very long time know what the governance structure is around that and who's involved and who's at the table. So,
thank you so much for bringing that. This is also, I think, part of an element that feeds into transparency and fairness, and really all of the potential best practices that have been highlighted today is communication, mutual communication back and forth between those impacted and those making decisions. And I think that speaks to that the fact that none of us could tell you what the regulatory structure is within our institution, let alone that it's in toddlerhood and is looking to have good feedback and how to make improvements, et cetera, speaks to that. Yeah, Paula.
Also just wanted to say that thank you. Thanks for identifying yourself. And tell me your name again. I'm sorry. Sarah. Yeah, thank you so much. I found that a very exciting moment when you revealed your true identity. So thank you. Definitely wanted to put out there to you the opportunity to talk with those of us building the infrastructure for patient and community engagement in these matters, to know where, likewise, you probably want to know what we're working on and how we're building the people, places, opportunities for you to bring patients, community members to your work. So what we're hearing here is a very common theme of solutions.
And that's Paula Fleischer.
So yeah, so I think we can all find ways to share identities with each other.
One more coming.
But there are efforts in the research space, but research is way more dispersed than the clinic. And there are aspects of research oversight, used very generously, but some that are completely untouched. So I'm right now associate director for the Population Health Data Initiative, and so am learning about efforts to expand de-identified data resources, and they scare me because they are completely unchecked. They're just getting plugged in, but I think without the acknowledgement that you put in concepts for social determinants built from notes into the DID system, and then researchers are just going to run with it, not knowing how it was built, how it got there, and what it means. And so there are still parts of the research that is not even on anyone's radar as to how algorithms are getting incorporated into research work from the very beginning.
It's on the radar now.
Yeah, can I respond to that? Hi, I'm Ida Sim. I'm Chief Research Informatics Officer. Everything you said is on our radar, is central to our radar. Work very, very closely with Sarah. I think there are specific concerns with AI deployed in the health system for patient care. Obviously, a lot of researchers actually do research with innovations that deploy in the health system as a research intervention. And then there's a lot of research that doesn't touch the health system. And that is absolutely on our radar as well. What you brought out around data and data resources and data safety. We have governance structures, but the governance structures were made for a time before AI. We're actively looking at issues and how to structure ourselves. I would say this is one of the major challenges, and I know Keith and Tung and I have been talking about this. It's our capacity for governance. That is one of our core capacities as an institution. We recognize that, we're building on it. This workshop, giving us recommendations around how we structure that governance going forward is critical. So welcome all your thoughts about that.
About the existing governance. Again, it's very much evolving, and some of these things that Ida mentioned, like we haven't brought into health system government. Right now, health system governance is largely focused on tools being implemented in the health system, but there are like population health, big things that aren't necessarily going directly into Epic, and governance needs to be expanded for all of that. I think, one of the things we're discussing broadly across UCSF is the amount of time that needs to be invested for governing AI is tremendous. It's like IRB level time. It's not just a committee where we can say yes or no, we're going to buy this technology for UCSF. And so that is a large resource investment that has to happen here for us to be able to do that well. And it's not just us. No one in the country is doing this well yet, but we're trying. Start where we are.
So with that, and we're over time, so I want to be respectful of people's time and just thank everyone for participating today and enabling us to take these first baby steps, maybe toddler steps, towards algorithmic justice and precision medicine, and really surfacing some of these issues that will infuse future discussions, future regulatory activities. And I want to thank everyone's participation and honesty in lifting up these things. If Keith is willing to just give us a brief little send off, I'll call him up to bookend our day.